How's it going? Thralls of Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and we're doing a collection update again. Got a pretty big stack here, a lot of interesting stuff, so we're just going to get right into it. Mordbrand Wilt. It's a Swedish death metal band. The first time I heard them, actually, they came in a Metalhead box long before we were recording, and I really liked it, even though it didn't really sound like the stereotypical Swedish death metal. It sounded closer to a combination of incantation and maybe obliteration. This one definitely sounds like Swedish death metal. The guitar tone is there. It's a little bit deeper and kind of, I don't know, really crispy sounding. Kind of reminded me of the guitar tone of Ripikolu when we saw him at Maryland Death Fest, which that one crushed my eardrums. Joyfully, though. Really good stuff. Some touches of black metal here and there, and even some kind of classic D-beat punk. Really good stuff. I enjoyed the album, and I'll definitely look into getting more of their stuff. Really dig it. Check it out. Krypts, Remnants of Expansion. Awesome Finnish death metal / death doom. Finnish death metal is kind of slow and sludgy anyways. Insanely fucking good. I really enjoy their latest album that came out on Dark Descent. This is the one that came before it. I believe this came out in 2016. It's very much similar to that last album. Very death doomy, long songs. The opening track is over 10.5 minutes. Just insanely heavy, dark sounding, very doom laden death metal. Really good shit. I strongly recommend checking out Krypts. They are awesome. If you like Finnish death metal, there's no reason why you wouldn't like these guys. Alright, we have a couple from Endseeker. We have the Corrosive Revelation EP and Flesh Hammer Prophecy. Not sure what the hell that means, but it sounds pretty fucking metal. This is the original EP that came out. I believe this came out in 2015. Straightforward Swedish death metal as played by a German band. Kind of in the same vein as Revel in Flesh or Flesh Crawl. Awesome sounding production, gritty songs, the guitar tone's also crunchy, almost kind of thrashy in parts. Really interesting vocals. The guy goes from highs to lows pretty frantically and has a really rabid fucking delivery. It's pretty awesome. And they also threw in a bonus cover of Supposed to Rot by Entombed, which that'll always get me. Good stuff. This is their full length. It is fucking awesome as well. You know, again, very much similar to Dismember, Entombed, Bloodbath. Production on this is a little bit better in spots and some changes I didn't like. I think the bass drum is more punchy on this one, but it kind of has an echoey boom, at least when I listen to it in my car. Still really good. Did not detract me from loving this album. Every track on here I thought was pretty fucking killer. Straightforward. If you love Swedish death metal, you'll dig this shit. It's really good. Homewrecker. Hell is Here Now. This band's from my home state. They're from Ashtabula, Ohio. It's kind of an interesting combination of metalcore / hardcore, maybe a bit of groove metal, and then old school death metal. So, like Unearth, except they're playing obituary songs. Pretty good stuff. The vocals are a little bit different. They're a little bit clearer than I expected. The delivery is almost kind of a hybrid between hardcore and death metal. Occasionally it gets down deep and growls, but for the most part it's kind of this interesting, even keel, growl almost bark. Musically it's pretty cool. It kind of balances both of those genres pretty well, and has some really good old school groovy death metal moments, very similar to Obituary or Jungle Rot. Pretty solid release. I gotta check out some more of their stuff, but pretty good. Crawl, Rituals. This is an awesome Swedish death metal band. This is out on Transcending Obscurity. Very straightforward songs. The songs aren't very long either. They run about 2.5 minutes for the most part. There are some longer ones in here. The production on this is heavy as fuck. Guitars are just insanely Swedish. That buzzsaw tone on here is absolutely monstrous. Pretty much embodies everything from that scene way back in the 90s. I really dig this. I like this resurgence in this sound because I'm a huge fan of it. And this is an awesome band to watch out for. If you see any of their albums around, pick them up. It's really fucking good. This Gift is a Curse, A Throne of Ash. This is a Swedish band, I believe, but not Swedish death metal. This is a combination of death metal, black metal, sludge metal, noise metal. It's insane sounding. And it kind of sacrifices catchiness and melody for the sake of just pummeling you with wall-to-wall distortion and agonized screams, dissonant melodies. It's fucking insane. But it's also pretty damn good. There are moments in here that I didn't find particularly accessible. Like, this is very comparable to a band like Full of Hell. But there are moments in here that I really did like. The last track, Wormwood Star, I thought was particularly good. This is definitely an interesting release. I'm going to have to listen to it more. But all in all, pretty decent. Check them out. Beheaded. Only Death Can Save You. New one from Beheaded. This came out on Agonia Records this time, rather than Unique Leader. They've been on Unique Leader for a while. These guys are from Malta. In fact, I think the only band I know of from Malta. They started off as a brutal death metal band and then slowly shifted to a more just straightforward death metal act. The last album in particular, Beast Incarnate, I really enjoyed, and I was kind of looking for a continuation of this one. And this one, I just feel as though they kind of just were going through the motions on this one. The songs are okay for the most part. Like, they really don't stand out. A lot of them just kind of blend in. There are some good songs on here, but in comparison to their previous work, which I thought was a really cool direction they were heading in, this kind of feels like a lackluster follow-up. The vocal cadences are kind of strange. Sometimes they're off the rhythm or don't really have a rhythm at all. But there are some moments here that reminded me of stuff like Deicide or even Malevolent Creation, because there's definitely a thrashy tinge to it. But all in all, it's a pretty decent album. Check it out, form your own opinion. You might dig it. Rotten Sound, Under Pressure. This is their first full length, and it is a lot different than what they currently sound like. Right now, they're probably one of my favorite grindcore bands out there. From Finland, they've been doing this for a while. Now, early on, they definitely seem to emulate a lot of the 90s bands in terms of like death metal and grindcore. This kind of sounds a bit like, you know, early 90s Napalm Death. The production on it is kind of lackluster. It doesn't feel very full, and the guitar riffs are not particularly catchy for the most part. There aren't any real earworms here. Handful, you know, pockmarked through the entire album, but for the most part, it's only kind of okay. And vocally, it's a lot different too. And vocally, it kind of reminded me more of crust punk. The frontman's voice actually kind of reminded me more of a band like Disrupt. All in all, not a bad release. I like where they're at much better, but, you know, it's good to see where they started. Check it out. Regurgitate. Effortless Regurgitation. The Torture Sessions. This is a collection of early EPs, demos, and splits that Regurgitate did and Relapse reissued in 1999. This is straightforward grindcore. There are 63 tracks on this album, and I love the horror reference on the cover. That's from Gates of Hell, one of my favorite Fulci movies. And the opening track is actually the audio from this particular scene where a woman essentially barfs up her own entrails. Pretty gory, pretty awesome. Musically, it's very raw. It's straightforward grindcore. Most of the stuff is only about a minute and a half long. Real deep gurgled vocals, kind of reminiscent of Carcass's Recaputrefaction, probably. But good stuff all in all. These guys aren't around anymore, so I figured, you know, get the rest of their discography. I only had one of their albums before, and they kind of just flew under the radar for me. So, got another one. Check it out, though. It's pretty fun. Also, Fulci rules. Necrophobic, the third Antichrist. Awesome Swedish Blackened death metal. I fucking love this band. Pretty much, I don't think they have a weak release. They're really good at blending melody and that Blackened death sound, because actually the death metal side of them actually sounds more as though it's melodic death metal, so you get a lot of really catchy melodies in here, but they don't sacrifice any level of brutality at all. Great album, solid pretty much all the way through, except for the last track, which is a weird outro. It has a kind of an industrial feel with a spoken word bit over it. It just didn't feel like the best way to close the album, especially since the rest of the album was just epic as fuck. But yeah, if you've never jammed Necrophobic, this is one of the best Blackened death metal bands out there, in my opinion. Check them out. Mortician, Domain of Death. Fucking New York two-man death metal. Straightforward, you know, just two guys and a drum machine, and a lot of horror movie samples. Pretty decent album. It's not my favorite. I prefer some of the earlier stuff and even some of the later stuff. This time the drum machine just sounded way too mechanical. Like, they weren't really trying to vary up any of the rhythms or anything as much. And I thought the bass tone was a little too swampy, and it kind of blended in with the vocals too much. So it was kind of hard to distinguish. But plenty of guitar riffs on here that are pretty meaty, and I love the obscure samples and everything on here from tons of grindhouse films. But yeah, all in all, pretty decent album. If you never jammed Mortician, definitely check them out. Maybe not start with this one, but definitely check out Mortician because they fucking rule. Kalmah. This is a reissue of both their first album, Swamplord, and their second album, They Will Return. I really dig Swamplord. Swamplord is very straightforward melodic death metal. These guys are from Finland, so it has that sort of folky sound to it too, as well as some keyboards. Now, Swamplord sounds a little more raw. It's very close to early At the Gates in some spots. Really dug it. Solid pretty much all the way through. They Will Return, definitely saw them turn more kind of keyboard forward, and more of the folky elements were in there. It's good. I don't think it's as good as Swamplord, but it did include a interesting cover of Skin on My Teeth. Really would have preferred like a slightly different vocal performance on it, but I thought it was still pretty good, and that's a fucking fun song anyway. If you never heard Kalmah, they're a pretty solid Finnish melodic death metal band / folk metal band, you know, whatever. Check them out. It's pretty good shit. Body count. Violent Demise, The Last Days. This is the only one I was missing out of my body count collection. I still like these guys. This album is a little too cheesy for me. Kind of cringe-worthy lyrics. The riffs are pretty decent. I mean, it's kind of a standard groove metal thing. I like the thrashier elements that came out in the later releases. It was mostly just like, oh, well, let's just kind of finish up this collection. The audio segments are kind of interesting, too. There's, like, some interviews, and it's an interesting listen. I wouldn't say it's necessary in terms of body count. I would jam more of their later stuff, because I really think they're onto something now. But yeah, check it out. It's a fun listen. Bathtub Shitter. Shitter and Salzgitter. Live in Germany in 2004. Bathtub Shitter is a Japanese grindcore band that are just fucking insane. And this was a live show at a club in Germany. Seems like it was a small crowd, but they didn't hold back one bit. It's a pretty nuts live set. Recording quality is actually pretty decent on this too, especially for a grindcore band, because generally they're just trying to be as loud and fast as fuck as possible, because it's grindcore. Pretty decent release. They're not big on live albums as much, but not bad. Check it out. Angelcorpse Exterminate. Blackened death metal band that unfortunately aren't around anymore. These guys were originally from Missouri and I think moved to Florida later. This was, I think, their second or third release? Can't quite remember. Really good blackened death metal. There's like a touch of thrash to it too. Heavy as fuck. I think their drummer was absolutely fantastic. Pretty solid one. This was a reissue in 2016 from Osmos. And yeah, it's Angelcorpse. It's a solid fucking jam. Pretty much front to back. I thought there was like one track in here. I was like, it was kind of alright. But for the most part, this is fucking great shit. Yeah, check them out. Amenra Mass VI. Amenra are a post-metal band from Belgium, and all their stuff is titled Mass and then a Roman numeral. This is the one that is the most recent. It came out in 2017, and I've been really getting into Amenra here lately. I really love their just dense, layered sound. Like, they can go from being insanely heavy to among like the heaviest in post-metal to just being absolutely beautiful and melodic. It's really interesting. I particularly like the Solitary Rain on this one. That song really stood out to me. It showcased both clean and harsh vocals and just a massive wall of sound. I had the pleasure of seeing these guys open up for Yob with Voivod not too long ago, and they blew me away. They were insanely good. Definitely check these guys out. If you're a big fan of post-metal, this is a band you should totally get into. Cave-In, Final Transmission. Kind of a bittersweet release. This is the last Cave-In album ever, and this is the last one with Caleb Schofield on it, who unfortunately died not too long ago in a car wreck. It's a pretty decent album. I don't think it's, like, among their best. It was definitely missing Caleb Schofield's vocals. He did the harsher vocals, the more hardcore influenced stuff. And it has bigger, heavier moments, but I really wouldn't call it a metal album. Most of the guys have moved on to other projects, and I think this was just pretty much these last songs they had with him, and they wanted to get it out as a, kind of a tribute to him. And as a tribute, it works pretty well. It's pretty good. Opens up with some stuff that, you know, he wrote just kind of solo on his acoustic guitar. And like I said, kind of a somber, bittersweet release. But I've always liked this band just because they're musically adventurous. They were a post-hardcore band. They did sort of shoegaze stuff. They did full-on metal, hardcore, even some sludgy stoner stuff. Just, you know, they were willing to take a lot of chances, so I kind of appreciate that. But yeah, if you're a Cave-In fan, check it out. And finally, we have Abyssal, A Beacon in the Husk. This is their newest album. I saw these guys at Maryland Death Fest, and I was absolutely blown away. This is essentially a one-man project in the studio, and it is just nuts. Combination of black metal, death metal, doom metal, even some sludge, even some post-metal moments in here. It's all over the place. My only gripe is some of the build-ups to some of the songs were a little long, especially the second track, which the build-up to the actual song was about 2/3 of the song. All in all, the rest of the music is just marvelous. Like, there's some seriously off-kilter writing on this, and their live show is absolutely insane. 100% check these guys out. This is just a nuts listen. If you're looking for something challenging but engaging, this album will definitely do it for you. Check it out. Alright, well that does it for another collection update. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We do stuff like this all the time. And of course, links to the music will be posted below. Catch you guys later.